So I got to tell you, I've had another one of those moments where I sit on something that I've done for another day or so and then decide to redo it, just like I did the nut. So what I've decided to do, and I'm sure a few of you guys might have picked up on this, is the key that I made was a square key, and this is actually a deeper key than which would be a standard key. So I'm thinking that they may have used a rectangular shaped key so that you fill up this key and the lead screw more than what I had done. So I've gone back and I've redone exactly what you see me do here. I made a key with the exception of I took a piece of 1/4 inch square stock and milled one side down so that we have a 3/16 by 1/4 inch rectangular key. Drilled the 1/8 holes. I've made 2 more of the tension pins, and I'm getting ready to reinstall the key into the gear just like you had already seen me do and get that done. And that was that. I just wanted to share that with you, and we'll go ahead and I had filed this keyway as well and tried to remove any burrs or anything that was catching this key as it slides down. There was still a little bit of burr right down on the end where it was a little tighter right there, and we got it to where I can push it with my finger all the way down, and then we'll put our gear on it so you can see that we're filling up the keyway a lot nicer. Let me get it down there a little bit further. Just like so. So that should work a little bit better. I was afraid if I left the square key in there, that what it might have done is rock itself right on down to where it was trying to pull out of the gear. So that's why I decided to go ahead and make another key. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and reinstall this, and I am ready to move on and possibly start putting this tool head back on to the shaper. All right, I'm ready to finish putting this thing back together. So we got to put this bevel gear in first, and then we'll put our other bevel gear set through there. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little bit of oil on this. All right, we got to put that one in first or you won't be able to get it in there. So let's get it stood up here. Let me see where the set screw's at. Of course it's on that side. So there's the set screw right here that holds it in place. So let me show you. All right, so here's our other bevel gear set. I've been putting some oil down in there, and as I said before, this thing is just as smooth as silk. It just feels absolutely beautiful. This is our detent for the set screw to hold it in place. All right, there we go. There's our transfer of the bevel gears. All right, and from here we're going to go over to the shaper, and we're going to start getting this thing reinstalled. I wanted to mention this right here. I Scotch-Brited this face, make sure it was good and clean, and I want you to notice the pattern that's on this, and I believe that this was machined on a planer. I believe they had these were set up in a planer, and you would have had possibly a tool head in a horizontal position, and the table feeding these probably multiples across, if I would have guessed, and that's why you have that parallel cut line pattern in there. And I also Scotch-Brited the ways lightly, because they did have a little bit of contamination on them from all those years of it just sitting and collecting moisture down in there. So I cleaned those up the best I can. and we're getting ready to slide this thing back in there. First thing I need to install is the locking ring, or the clamp anyway. This is what clamps it tight, the tool head. So we need to put that in there. I've Scotch-Brited the face. All right, and then this is the screw, square-headed screw. I buffed it up a little bit, make it look pretty on the end. Clean the threads. I've got a little bit of machine oil on there, so let's go ahead and stick it in from the bottom. Alright, I did put a little bit of oil on the face right here, and right here I wanted all the clean metal faces to have a little bit of lubrication there for sliding. I need to stick the brass washers on the back of the tool head, and then we'll slide it in here. I believe I can put the brass washers on after it's in there. I just remember them being on there when I slid this out, but I think they'll go on, so I'll give it a try. There it is. I need to get down there and get everything lined up with the clamp here. All right, maybe you can see the back of it there and how it works. Got the clamp plate with its beveled area, and I slid the auto downfeed mech back so that I can slide these brass washers back on. So we'll see if we can get these lined up put back on there. Oh, that's going to be a lot of fun lining that stuff up. Looks like I'm going to have to pull that thing on back further. Yeah. There we go. Just like that. All right, there's one. I think we got them all lined up there. Let me go ahead and pull it in just a little bit further, and then I think we can just rotate this thing around and get the other ones. Well, that thing feels so good. All right. Now it's just tightening them up. All right, I got the 3 cap head bolts tight, and it really does put that tool head right at the perfect spot of not having any slack at all, because I got to use a bar through it to move it like this. So they got a good fit on it with those shims in there. All right, so we'll put that up and leave it right there. Let's see if I can get this auto downfeed back in there. There it is. It's working now. All right. I'm gonna put some extra grease on these right there. I got some of that red grease I used, and I'll recoat those. So let's go back up top. I got to get these 3 bolts back in there, but there we can see our bevel gear is working again. So all good there. And then here's our clamp and the wrench that I made right there. And you just tighten it up. It's just like a band clamp. Alrighty. So the next order of business before we go any further is I need to go ahead and get this polished up and cleaned up. And we're going to be doing it in the same manner that you see me do the clapper box and the tool head in. We're going to be doing some filing. I'm going to get these corners radiused right here all the way around, and we're going to get it buffed and polished in. I'll clean those threads out right there and get it Scotch-Brited real well. I'm going to make sure that this is stone, make sure there's no scratches in there in the ways it's sticking up. and start putting this thing back together. All right, we're going to take our stone and rub in here with that. See if we got any high spots in there, and just stone them down. I See a little bit of area right here that needs to be filed because it's raised up from all the hammering. And we'll check that side too. I can see some uniform flatness on it. See this corner right here where all the hammering, it's raised up just a bit. All right, that got it down. A little bit right there. This is where I take my air grinder and this wire wheel right here and lightly hit this to help remove any of the rust that's down in those pitting areas and take that discoloration out of it. And then after I do that, I hit it with the Scotch-Brite. I'm gonna go ahead and run the tap in these two holes here, and these are 3/4 16. We got the stud that goes right there, and then we have this bolt right here that goes there that holds the clapper plate. Use another one of my flea market find Greenfield number 6 tap wrenches. All right, we got good threads there, so I'll just give those with a puff of air and make sure there's no chips left in them. I still need to polish this guy up and deburr that slot right there. That's that. All right, so now I'll get back on polishing the surface there. All right, I have not rubbed the top of this with a file yet, so that's what we're going to do now, and I'm going to see if there's any high spots. I suspect there might be some right in here. Hopefully this will be nice and flat, so it's look and see. Got a little bit on the corners there where it's been hit. There we go, yep. It's only hitting on the edges right there. You can see the bright where it's cutting it right along there. I'll do some more filing and try to bring it down. Not that critical, but I'm wanting to make it look good and get everything back to a uniform shape. Man, we got the tool slide looking and feeling great. I love that Scotch-Brite finish on it, man. It just puts a nice sheen on it, and it's just really soft to the touch. Really, really smooth. I got a fresh sheet of 220 here that I'm gonna rub this face with it and just see what it's gonna look like, and if it's too much to try to flatten it out, then I'm not gonna worry with it. This really is a good candidate for machining flat. It's got a few scratches in here from the clapper box sliding back and forth on it, but I'm not too concerned about it. I'm ready to get it together and you know, just get it all back together. So let me rub it on this 220 and see what it's going to do. Let's take a peek and see what it's showing. Yeah, it's actually looking pretty good. It's yeah, it's sanding on the whole thing right there. That's nice. All right. Okay. Well, I had the sides down. I was afraid that these were still sticking up a little bit, but we've got the sides down. So, all right, I'm going to keep on rubbing it then. There's the results of our sanding there. Started with 220, then I went to 600 and then 1,000. That's just the grits that I have here, but I think it worked out pretty good, and it is still nice and flat. And it's going to look so much better on the shaper all polished up like that. So we are ready to start putting this thing back together. I need to clean these holes out, blow those out real good, and we're going to start assembling it. Putting it back together, thought I'd point out a couple of things here. So we talked about this before. This is the part that goes down right here that the friction collar goes on. So I faced 5 thousandths off the back of that face right there to clean that up, and I gave it a nice little polish. We've got our brass thrust washer right there. We're going to go ahead and I got a little bit of oil on everything too. I've got the brass on the other side as well, as seen in the previous video. I got this polished up too. This looks to be nickel plated, and I put it on a mandrel over there in the lathe and just hit it with the gray Scotch-Brite and cleaned it up. But what we need to do now is we'll index this thing around. Alright, and here's the spring that applies tension to the inside of the friction collar. It's a really heavy spring there. We'll drop that down in there. Make sure you go in the right direction. We'll see if we can get it started. Well, I might need a little bit of force. Let me grab my little nylon. That's all it needed. Man, look at that. Look how nice that's looking. Okay. Alright, we're not quite there yet. I've got the handle. I have not done anything to that yet, but what I'm going to do is just take my Scotch-Brite and just manually try to polish that out a little bit and brighten it up, and then we'll go ahead and stick it on there. Alright, here's our hand polish on the crank handle. I would have liked to have had it shinier than that, but that's about as good as it's going to get right now. And then I did buff the nut there on the Scotch-Brite wheel. So we are just about done with this reassembly. Alright, there we go. Man, that looks good. Let me move it over and get you a little better shot of that. Well, what do you guys think? Personally, I'm real happy with the way it turned out, and I think we've got some vast improvements over what we had when we first started. So yeah, it looks good, and hopefully it's going to function a lot better and be a lot tighter and work good for us on the shaper.